let's make some pie. Well, it's almost July 4th. That's Independence Day for us Americans, and that means that it'll be time to start making desserts. And a lot of people are always looking for something a little patriotic to fix. Red, white, blue, those colors. This is a pie it's not the most affordable. You can take some shortcuts, but it's probably one of the easiest pies that I know how to make. And for what it is, I think it's one of the better tasting pies. So if you have minimal cooking skills, this is a great thing to fix. It's fairly fast, considering the amount of baking you'll actually be doing. And so right now it's just past Memorial Day here. We had some friends that graduated high school. That one of them's leaving out to the Army this week, and so they're down here staying with us for a little bit until she leaves out. And I thought it'd be really nice to have some type of little dessert or something other, and we could talk. And so that's the reason for this. But this would be a fantastic pie to take to a 4th of July party. So it's fairly easy. It is affordable, but not the most affordable in the world. I'll explain why. And if you got better cooking skills, you can do a lot of this yourself, but that's going to change the cost. But the flavor will probably be better. But this is something that, like I said, anybody at a very beginning skill set can do, and so I want to make this be a very achievable dessert, so stick around. First thing I'm going to do is cheat. I'm going to use a frozen pie shell. Now these come two to a package. I'm only going to use one, so I'll take it out, and the first thing we need to do is preheat the oven. Alright, ovens are generally either hot or cold, depending upon, there are very few of them that are actually at the set temp. So on this, I'm doing 405 degrees. If your oven runs hot, go a little cooler. If your oven runs cold, go a little hotter. Adjust accordingly. I figure around 405 degrees, that's about right for my oven. I just wrap this back up in plastic wrap, and I'll put this in the freezer. Now it's going to be critical that you just leave this out and let it defrost. It's got to defrost for about, I'd say 10 minutes or so. And so that gives the oven time to preheat as well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take a fork and we're going to do a thing called docking. And that's just where you kind of poke some holes in the dough with a fork. You want to do the bottom and the sides. I'm doing about, I don't know, I'd say 3/4 of an inch apart. The idea behind the docking is that it just keeps the dough from rising too high up. And so I'm just going to continue this on. I'll show you when I'm done. Now the first ingredient to this will be pecans, and so I've got 6 ounces of pecan halves. You can use more, you can use less. If you're on a budget, you can take pretzels, like pretzel sticks or whatever, and get them super cheap, and take some salted butter and kind of crush them up with some melted salted butter, and that will be basically the same thing as chopped up pecans. So that's a little trick there to save you some money. Okay, so I saved back about 5 to 7 pecan halves to put on top. This amount of pecans right here, you could easily half this amount to do 2 pies if you wanted to. That's how forgiving this recipe is. I like the pecans in it, so I went heavy because I want it the way I like it. But if you're making, 2 pies, just half this amount of pecans and you could do 2 pies with that amount of pecans. Nobody would really notice the difference that much. Or like I said before, you could do crushed up pretzels with salted butter melted over it and tossed in it. It'd be perfect. No one would really notice the difference. It just provides a little bit of extra crunch and a little something different to it. Now we're going to put this into the oven for about 15 minutes. So while that is working, I've got 8 ounces of cream cheese that has been laid out to soften. To this, we're going to add a cup of powdered sugar. So instead of using a hand mixer or something like that and get this powdered sugar everywhere, I'm just going to simply use a fork and mix this together, and as the sugar melts, it'll actually become easier to work. So I'm going to just start working this in. I'll be back in a second. There you have it. Of course, if you had a electric mixer, you're more than welcome to do it, but for this small amount, you know, if I was doing 2 pies, I'd probably go to the electric mixer, but this right here, I don't have as much waste with the electric mixer, and I can also make sure that my consistency is right, that all the cheese incorporated in properly. So I'm very happy with that. If you did not have your cheese proper to room temperature, this will be a nightmare to get to go together, because that all the fat and everything will be too hard. But this right here is nice and loose and ready to go. The pies are smelling wonderful. They're smelling of roasted pecans, and they'll be out in just a few minutes. Alright, so the pie is ready, but what I've done is I turned on the broiler, and I'm going to just kind of brown up this a little bit more, make it have that baked pie look. It only takes just a few seconds with a broiler just to get a few of those little brown edges. You don't want to over toast the pecans. That's the main thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this filling and dollop in here and spread it out, and I'll show you that. Okay, so I literally dolloped, like I said I was going to do, this in here, and the reason why is that I have worked very hard to get a nice even roasted layer of pecans. And so now when I try and move this around, I won't disturb that layer that much as I go from dollop to dollop, trying to even this out. And so what I'm going to do is take my fork, and I'm just going to lightly, I mean lightly spread this and even this out from dollop to dollop. And as a touch, in fact, the more touching you have, the better, the easier it is, so you don't mess up and get those pecans and the you know, this outer layer. You want it all to be kind of even. So I'm just spreading this out as easily as I can, evenly as I can, and I'll be back in a minute to show you the finished product when I'm done. Okay, not the prettiest thing in the world, but it does work. Now we're going to add in our pie filling. Yes, I could make my own pie filling, but I'm not. This is cheap and affordable. This has no high fructose corn syrup in it, so was not trying to get that, but that's great. So that was a whole can of pie filling. Now we'll go on to the next step. This is where most people are going to groan the most, using Cool Whip, or Cool Whip knockoff in this case, but it holds up the best, and it really goes well with this dish. If it would have tasted better with whipped cream, I would have used whipped cream, but I have done this numerous times. This works best, and it is traditional to the recipe, so we're going to go ahead and do that next. Now all I did here is I put a cookie tin on top of my burner and put a plate over it, and I'm using that as a pie turner, and you can see where I'm going along the edges with this knife around it. Now it's not perfect by any means, but then what you can do is you can just kind of bring that into the center and fill it in. Okay, I'm not saying this is the prettiest pie in the world, but it is darn tasty. And normally I would reserve some of the filling and put in the center, but I totally forgot to do that. But that's normally what I do. So some of that blueberry would have gone right there. Still be good, I know what it is. But if you're going to a party, it does help to save that dollop. Or take a few blueberries out and put them out there so that they can see it's blueberry versus strawberry or whatever. And also let them know that there is nuts on this. So if somebody does have a nut allergy, they're aware of it. Because you never know. I'm going to wrap this up with plastic and let this sit in the fridge at least 2 hours. It needs time to chill. So I'll be back later and I'll show you what it looks like and we'll do a taste test. Okay, it's time to do a taste test. Not the best slicing in the world, but hey, I've never been good at doing pie slices to begin with. I never said that. Time to try some. Oh my God. If you make this, you're going to be popular. Man. The nuts, the creaminess, the cheese, the berries, a little bit of tartness, sweetness. It's rich, yet it's not too rich. It's kind of got a little bit of a zing to it, but not too much. Everything is well balanced. And so it makes for a very umptious dessert. We used to make this all the time at my hunting camp. It was a popular pie. And then when I used to work in the court system, people just raved about it. It's just something that I've ate all my life. And you can tell why it stuck around. It's just that good. It does fall into what I call trailer park food, meaning that you're relying upon a lot of processed foods, pre-manufactured foods. It doesn't require a lot of skill. It's very easy to fix. It's not that expensive, but it's not that cheap either. I think a bag of pecans now is running about $10. And so I used a bag of pecans. 6 ounces, $10. That's crazy. And then the blueberries, the pie filling, you're running about $5 a can sometimes, depending upon where you get it. Pie shell, I get 2 for about $5-6. So it's not a cheap pie, but it's not a really expensive pie either. You can do cheaper, you can find cheaper. If you handmade it, you might get better flavor, but you'd have to work really, really hard to get this level of quality. I would try my version first and then see if you can do better. If you can, great, but you're going to work yourself to death to get something to this level. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to finish up this pie, and please give a like if you make this pie. Please let me know. Tell me what you think. If you make one similar, tell me how it's different and how, what happens there. And with that, I'll see you again next time. Bye.